Hello, Year 12, and welcome to what will hopefully be your last week of off-site learning. I can't wait to see you guys next week in person. It's going to be magical. I have lots of really fun, great learning experiences planned for you guys when you return. So yeah, lots to look forward to. Get excited, guys. Let's have a look at the last little bit of work that you need to do for your off-site learning. Before I dive on into that, I'm just going to go over the answers to week 2 for those of you guys who didn't manage to make it to the Zoom lesson that we had. So week 2 is plants in the grand scheme. What we talked about was where plants fit in the grand scheme of life. And basically what we came up with was plants are essential. They're the most important thing. Without plants, we don't actually start an energy cycle. So plants are primary producers, which means that they make their own food using sunlight as the energy source. They're called primary producers, primary meaning one, because they do make their own food. They don't have to eat anything to get energy. They make their own energy, which is really, really cool. Us, on the other hand, as animals, we have to eat things to get energy. We can't photosynthesize. We can't just make our own energy out of the sunlight, okay? So we are what we call we could be a primary consumer or a secondary consumer or a tertiary consumer, etc., etc. So we talked about that. We talked about our energy pyramid here and the fact that every time something eats something else, only 10% of that energy actually gets transferred. So if we start out with 20,000 calories per square meter of grass, only 2,000 of those calories are going to get transferred to the primary consumer, the next level up here. And then something will eat that particular animal, and only 200 of those calories will actually get transferred, and so on and so forth up the food chain. So the last animal up the food chain is the one getting the least amount of energy because only 10% is transferred each time. Okay, so here's the activity that you needed to take part in. There is a YouTube video here that you can watch, and that YouTube video is available on my YouTube channel for you guys to watch if you care to jump across and do that. Otherwise, these are the activities. So activity number 1 here was just completing this food web. So there's a bunch of these little pictures down here, and from reading the information above, you needed to put them into the food web up the top there. Pretty easy one there. Okay, the second activity was using the information in the passage, answer the following questions. So what is a primary producer? It's a plant or an organism that uses photosynthesis to produce its own food. Doesn't need to eat anything. 3 examples could be, and here are lots of examples that we came up with in class. What percentage of energy is transferred each time energy is transferred from one organism to another? Only 10%, not very much. If you had a crop of oats with a stored biomass of 50,000 calories, what would be the amount of calories that would get transferred to the tertiary consumer? So 3 levels up. So we went through that maths. You needed to have a go at that. Complete a food chain for an agricultural system, which includes a primary producer, primary consumer, and secondary consumer. We came up with a number of examples. So one was an apple tree. The primary consumer might be a worm, and then a secondary consumer might be a magpie that eats that worm. Within an agricultural system, it could be grass. The primary consumer would be Murray the school cow, and the secondary consumer would be you and me when we eat him on a hamburger. Delicious. And then the last one, in your own words, explain why plants are so important for agriculture. So there's a number of things there that you can have a look at and write down. Okay, moving quickly on to week 3, which is the role of plants in agriculture. Plants in agriculture. Food, 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 you guys. It's all about food, whether it's food for the animals that we raise to eat or if it's food for us to eat directly from the tree or the bush or the shrub or the roots or whatever part of the plant we're actually eating. So a few activities to do this one, not very much reading, just some activities for you guys to do. The first activity here, you may need to do a bit of research if you're not sure, but basically I just want you to draw some lines to match up the description of the plant with the image of the plant with the name of the plant. So I can go ahead and just give you a little hint. So for example, tomato. We all know what a tomato is. All you need to do is put an arrow that goes down to the tomato here, and then you figure out which one of these belongs to the tomato, and you do an arrow. You do an arrow up to that particular one as well. Really, really simple task, that one. There's an activity here that asks you to give some examples of fruits and vegetables that we get from different parts of the plant. So sometimes we eat the roots of the plant, sometimes we eat the stems, sometimes it's the leaves or the fruits or the flowers. Or sometimes it's the seeds as well. So all I want you to do here is do a little bit of Googling, a little bit of research, and tell me an example of a vegetable where we're eating the root part of the plant. And I've started that off with you. An example is carrots. When you eat a carrot, you're actually eating a plant root. Stems. Some plants we eat the stems, and I've started you off with this one, celery. Celery, we eat primarily the stems. You can eat the leaves too. They're also delicious, but mostly we eat the stems of celery. Leaves. We eat the leaves of lettuce. What else do we eat the leaves of? Fruit. An example of a fruit that you eat from a tree could be apples. And an example of a flower, some of you may not know this, but when you eat broccoli, you're actually eating the flower of the plant. So that's pretty cool. So all you need to do is do some Googling and come up with 3 more examples for each one of these as to what part of the plant we're actually eating. Pretty easy to Google. And 2 more small activities for you to do. This one says write under each image here below the name of the fruit or vegetable, and if they are a root, stem, leaf, or fruit, or flower. Lucky last activity, and I think this one's a pretty fun, creative one. It says choose one agricultural plant, find a recipe for that particular plant, write out the ingredients and the recipe below, and include a picture of the finished product. So this could be even something that you're making at home. And if you want to put a picture of your own finished product in, that is fantastic. Well done you. But it can just be one you've Googled from the internet. Okay, guys? So choose a plant, find a recipe where you use that plant, write down the ingredients, and write the recipe. And that's it. That's all you have to do for your ag work this week. It's pretty straightforward, pretty simple stuff. Just to show you guys how we're actually using plants in our everyday lives. Okay, fantastic work. I can't wait to see you guys on the Zoom. Mostly, I can't wait to see you next week when you're back here. So have a great weekend, and I will see you guys all next week.